How's it going, you guys? So I apologize that it's taken me a little while to get this video out. I really wanted to try a bunch of different runs and put 100 miles on this guy, but I'm really excited to get into the full review of the Brooks Hyperion Tempo. So, like always, let's start with the upper. There isn't too much to the Hyperion Tempo's upper. It's a single layer of mesh with large cutouts for 4-foot ventilation, and it's very simple and fast feeling. It has a nice Achilles fin that isn't too aggressive, and luckily I had no heel slipping like I have had with some of the Nikes that have this feature. So this shoe has a very thin tongue, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But since it isn't attached to the sides of the shoe and is a little short, I found that by the end of my run the tongue had slid down or drifted off to the side instead of staying in place. So while the lockdown of this shoe is great for most road conditions, while running on uneven terrain or around sharp corners, I found my foot sliding around and it didn't feel very stable. Alright, let's move on to the DNA Flash midsole. This shoe introduced the new DNA Flash midsole. I really like this material, which is nitrogen infused EVA. It added a little extra bounce and responsiveness that I hadn't gotten from any of Brooks' other midsoles. The DNA Flash midsole also helps make this shoe very light. At 7.3 ounces for the standard men's size 9, this shoe really felt like a racing flat. So honestly, couldn't think of many things I didn't like about this midsole. It seems to be holding up well for around 100 miles, but maybe add a few millimeters thicker in the forefoot. That's about all I have for cons on this guy. Alright, with that, let's move on to the outsole. A lot of shoes in this lightweight trainer category tend to sacrifice outsole coverage to save weight. The Hyperion Tempo doesn't do this and has a great coverage in the forefoot and heel areas to try and help make this shoe a bit grippier and more durable. Speaking of grip, I found this outsole to grip nicely on the roads and on the track, and even on dirt roads. The only thing I didn't like about the outsole is how thin the rubber is. While I personally haven't had any issues so far, I can see once getting closer to the 300-mile mark, you could shred through this rubber. Alright, so there were some pros and cons to the shoe, but let's get into the shoe type Stoplight rating. For speed day, the shoe is definitely a green light. With tempo in its name, the shoe excels at that and most other workouts that you'll be doing, or even if you're just trying to get some KOM course records on Strava segments. So surprisingly, I'm giving this guy a green light as an everyday trainer as well. It has a comfortable upper, a good amount of cushion, and a decent amount of coverage on the outsole to be a great performance-oriented everyday trainer. Of course, you won't get as many miles out of this guy as you would an actual everyday trainer workhorse, but it can still handle a beating. Alright, so what about long runs? I'm giving the Hyperion Tempo a yellow light for that. So I have plenty of other shoes in mind that I'd rather pick for a long run that have more cushioning and more support. But if I was doing a progression run or a long tempo during a marathon training cycle, I would definitely go for this guy. And the final category, recovery day. This guy is getting a yellow light for recovery as well. Again, it isn't necessarily my first choice. I'd probably prefer throwing on the Cliftons or something like that, but it definitely does a way better job at slower paces than some other shoes I've reviewed. So in conclusion, the Brooks Hyperion Tempo is a great all-around shoe. I loved using it as the one and only shoe that I could take for a 2-mile warm-up to the track, do a few mile repeats, and then do a couple miles for the cool down, all in the same shoe. It felt great at the 7:45 minute per mile cool down pace, but also when I was up on my toes at 5:20 pace on the track, it felt nice for that as well. It doesn't have a plate to give it that extra pop or an aggressive rocker, but I actually kind of like that about this shoe. So Brooks' new midsole material really shines in this shoe, and I'm really glad that they're bringing it to the Hyperion Elite 2 this fall. I do really want to see it in more Brooks training models though. I think that would be a great option to make their shoes lighter and a little bit livelier. So that's it for this review, guys. Thanks for watching. I have a ton more videos lined up, so subscribe so you don't miss those. And as always, keep on running.